The most dangerous hunters of the prehistoric world didn't just hunt prey, they hunted each other. Forget the myth of the Tyrannosaurus rex as the untouchable king, or the Mosasaurus as the undisputed lord of the oceans. In reality, the more formidable you were, the more challengers you attracted. A Tyrannosaurus might have had a bite like a hydraulic press and a body built for power, but it lived among rivals just as fierce. The greatest threat to an adult Tyrannosaurus was often another Tyrannosaurus. Their fossilized bones bear the marks of brutal clashes, deep bite wounds from their own kind, healed fractures, and even chunks bitten clean off. These scars tell of savage fights, desperate bites, and, at times, cannibalism. It makes perfect sense in a world where the most dangerous enemy is the one built just like you. And the young were always the easiest targets.
Where an adult Tyrannosaurus was a living tank, its smaller, younger kin were far more vulnerable. Packs of smaller theropods would swarm them, chasing down the weak or wounded. No dramatic heroics, just the relentless logic of biology. Find the vulnerable, attack without mercy, and survive. Even the plant eaters could be deadly. It might sound strange, but massive herbivores were not passive victims. They were formidable adversaries in their own right. Triceratops, with its towering horns and sheer weight, and Ankylosaurus, armored like a living tank and wielding a bone-crushing tail club, could deliver a single hit strong enough to shatter a predator's leg, split open its belly, or crack its skull. For a predator, that was the end of the hunt, and often the end of the line. Even if the wounds didn't kill immediately, starvation soon would. Now shift to the ancient seas, where Mosasaurus ruled, or seemed to. Picture a colossal marine reptile devouring everything in sight, a creature that looked unstoppable. But the skulls of these giants also bear bite marks, left by other mosasaurs. They fought for territory, battled over prey, and turned on the weakened. Sometimes they simply ate their own kind. Not even the oceans were safe from this brutal competition. Ancient sharks, too, joined the fray, coming from below with classic tactics, striking at the tail or fin, robbing their rivals of speed in a single attack. Once a predator lost its mobility, it quickly became just another meal. Here's the hard truth. In nature, there is no final boss. You can be the biggest, the fastest, the most terrifying predator in existence. But the moment you fall ill, get injured, grow weak, or wind up alone, you instantly shift from hunter to hunted. That is the most honest law of the ancient world. Predators hunted predators, not out of cruelty, but out of need. Meat is meat, no matter where you are. Energy is everything, and only those who feed survive. When a wounded Tyrannosaurus, a young Mosasaurus, or a weakened rival crosses your path, you don't care about their status. You only see food. And that's the real paradox of the top of the food chain. It's never a safe place. It's where the eyes of every rival are fixed on you, waiting for your first sign of weakness. One last bite can decide everything. So, how did these prehistoric giants really die? Strip away the movie myths, and their endings were rarely epic. More often, it was a slow, relentless decline. Wounds that never healed, infections that spread, hunger that gnawed away at their strength. The largest creatures on Earth died for the same reasons as any animal, but their falls were all the more haunting for their sheer scale and brutality. The deadliest enemy of the great predators was rarely some rival beast. It was injury. When paleontologists examine the bones of Tyrannosaurus rex, they find shattered ribs, deep bite marks, and jaws that healed crooked after violent trauma. For a hunter, even a damaged tooth or a fractured limb could mean the end. If a predator couldn't run or bite, the hunt was over. What followed was a simple, brutal sequence: weakness, hunger, and then death. Even a minor infection could turn fatal in a world without antibiotics. Every wound was a doorway for bacteria, and once infection took hold, blood poisoning, inflamed bones, parasites, the animal would weaken, sometimes over weeks. Fossils bear a silent witness to this agony. Traces of osteomyelitis, marks of ancient parasites, bones warped by chronic disease. Some giants died slowly, their strength ebbing away over months. Age was another silent killer. Immense size offered no protection from wear and tear. Many fossils reveal worn-down teeth, swollen joints, the unmistakable scars of arthritis. An old predator lost its edge, no longer able to chase prey. Old herbivores, too, lagged behind their herds, and in the wild, falling behind is a death sentence. Hunger followed close behind. Massive bodies demanded staggering amounts of energy, and when climate shifted or drought struck, prey vanished. Even the mightiest at the top of the food chain would begin to fade. Starvation was one of their most common ends. Sometimes it was sheer bad luck, a slip on a muddy slope, an animal trapped in a bog, a riverbank collapsing under its own weight. Many of the bones we find today come from these natural traps. Once stuck, a giant could not escape, doomed to die of dehydration or to be finished off by smaller predators circling nearby. Battles between titans did happen, but rarely did they end in an instant. More often, a predator would stagger away from a fight with a deep bite, a shattered bone, or punctured flesh. Days or weeks later, infection or weakness would finally claim them. That last fatal wound was often dealt long before the animal ever collapsed. Yet the most catastrophic deaths rarely came from tooth or claw, but from the planet itself. Volcanic eruptions, sudden droughts, plunging temperatures, or falling ocean levels, these events wiped out thousands at once, giants and small creatures alike. In the end, the starkest truth is this: sheer size never meant immortality. It only bought more time. The giants of the past died slowly, painfully, and, more often than not, alone. Their endings were rarely majestic. They did not die as kings, but as animals, vulnerable to the same forces as any creature. Picture the most powerful predator you can imagine. Massive, terrifying, seemingly unstoppable. Now imagine it limping through the shadows, a festering wound in its leg. It still breathes, its gaze still sharp, but it can no longer keep up with prey. Somewhere, in the dense undergrowth, a patient rival lies in wait, watching, knowing that soon, even the king will fall and become food. The Mesozoic era was a world of ambush. Even before mammals rose, predators had mastered the art of patience and stealth.
We often think of clever hunting as something unique to wolves, big cats, or humans, but Mesozoic hunters had perfected the strategy long before. Waiting, hiding, striking with precision and patience that would put modern predators to shame. In this ancient world, the rules of the hunt were different. The key to a successful ambush was to let the prey come to you. No need for a frantic chase.
The lush vegetation, humid warmth, and winding trails to water made the perfect backdrop.
Prey followed the same paths, day after day. All a predator had to do was choose the perfect spot and wait. For the semi-aquatic hunters, the oldest trick in the book was still the most effective. Lie absolutely still, blend into the shadows, and let the world come close enough for one decisive strike. Crocodile-like reptiles became masters of disguise, lurking in murky waters with only their eyes and nostrils breaking the surface. Their attack was sudden, a burst from below, or a slash from the side. For any herbivore that made a single misstep at the water's edge, it was all over in seconds. This ambush strategy has barely changed over hundreds of millions of years, a testament to its deadly effectiveness.
In the dense forests, silence was more valuable than speed. Many predators weren't built for sprinting. They didn't have to be. Instead, they relied on patience, blending into the tangled undergrowth and creeping forward, inch by inch. They waited for the perfect moment, letting prey wander close, just within striking distance. When the moment came, the attack was explosive and precise, a short, sharp strike aimed at the neck or the flank. Ambushes were not just about waiting, they were about choosing the perfect spot. Predators positioned themselves around cliffs, narrow pathways, swampy patches, or stone corridors, places where escape would be nearly impossible. Even the smaller predators of the Mesozoic, though less imposing, were no less dangerous. Stealth was their greatest weapon. They struck from cover, targeting the eyes, neck, or legs, vulnerable spots that could cripple even larger animals. Sometimes, these hunters worked together in packs. Even the mightiest creatures became vulnerable if they lost their agility. Ambush hunting was a display of intelligence. It demanded patience, careful judgment of distance, and perfect timing. 1 second of hesitation, and the prey would vanish. Act a moment too soon, and the hunter might find itself on the receiving end of a defensive blow. These tactics reveal complex behavior, not just blind instinct. When an ambush failed, when the prey caught a flicker of movement, caught a scent, or heard a single twig snap, the tables could turn in an instant. The predator was left out of breath, out of luck, and sometimes at the mercy of a desperate herbivore's counterattack. Ambush hunting in the Mesozoic wasn't some primitive version of what cats, wolves, and humans would one day perfect. It was the foundation, the original formula for survival. Wait, stay hidden, strike once, and strike true. This blueprint emerged long before us, and it still works today. But what happened when the prey fought back? We're used to imagining predators as unstoppable and herbivores as helpless, running for their lives. In reality, many plant eaters of the prehistoric world were so formidable that attacking them was a gamble. A single mistake could spell the end for the hunter. Some didn't just defend themselves, they maimed or even killed those who tried to eat them. Ankylosaurus, for instance, was nothing short of a living tank, its body encased in bony plates, its neck shielded by thick armor, and its tail ending in a massive, bone-crushing club. If a predator ventured too close, that club came down with terrible force, shattering legs or crushing hips. For a large theropod, a broken leg was a death sentence, leading to slow starvation. Ankylosaurus didn't chase or attack first. It simply waited for a predator's mistake and then struck with precision. Triceratops, on the other hand, was built for confrontation. With 3 formidable horns, a gigantic skull, and a powerful neck, this was no passive defender. Triceratops could turn to face its attacker, keep a safe distance, or charge headlong into the fray. Its horn could pierce deep into a predator's belly or side, ending the fight in a heartbeat. Fossilized bones bear the scars of these epic battles, bite marks, punctures, and even healed wounds, evidence of real duels rather than easy kills. And long before Tyrannosaurus rex ruled the land, ancient armored fish dominated the seas, creatures that couldn't simply be bitten through. Placoderms like Dunkleosteus were living fortresses, forcing predators to rethink their strategies or risk a fatal mistake. A bony shield encased the head, jaws like a vice, and almost no weak spots from the front. Any predator even thinking of attacking such a fish was gambling with its own teeth, or even its jaw. For some hunters, it simply wasn't worth the risk. They'd rather steer clear than pay the high price of a single mistake. Every predator weighed these odds in a heartbeat: distance, speed, and split-second timing. But when the target was armored, bristling with horns, or far heavier than it seemed, the whole plan could collapse in an instant. One wrong move, and suddenly the hunter became the wounded. And in the brutal world of prehistory, a wounded predator didn't last long. Why did this constant danger shift the course of evolution? Because such formidable prey forced predators to become more precise, targeting the weak, learning to hunt in packs, developing entirely new strategies for killing. The struggle wasn't just about brute force. It was an arms race where only the quickest, sharpest, and most cautious survived. The resistance of the hunted shaped the hunters, made them faster, smarter, and more adaptable. But here's the crucial truth. Nature doesn't draw clear lines between hunters and hunted. Power is a fleeting thing. One moment you're the attacker, the next you're on the defensive, or just desperately trying to survive. Picture this. A predator launches its assault, confident, expecting an easy kill. But the prey stands its ground, lowers its head, and charges straight into battle. Suddenly, the hunt becomes a fight for life. Long before Megalodon became the infamous icon of ocean terror, the seas had already seen countless rulers rise and fall. Megalodon was a late arrival. By the time it appeared, the oceans had already weathered entire ages dominated by creatures every bit as fearsome. The crown of the ocean was always changing hands. In each era, new giants emerged, only to be replaced by rivals even more formidable. The age of armored titans came first. Before dinosaurs ever walked the earth, placoderms, giant, bony-plated fish, ruled the ancient seas. Among them, Dunkleosteus was the most notorious. A massive skull of solid bone, jaws that could crush armor, and lightning-quick lunges over short distances. This apex predator devoured anything it could catch, including other large hunters. Then came the reign of marine reptiles. As the age of reptiles dawned, the ocean transformed. Ichthyosaurs, swift as modern dolphins, streaked through the water. Plesiosaurs, with their long necks, hunted with reach and precision. Pliosaurs, like the fearsome Leopleurodon, were hulking giants, their skulls built to deliver bone-crushing bites, their teeth sharp as blades. These were the undisputed top predators of their time. Next, the mosasaurs seized control in the late Cretaceous. These immense marine lizards hunted anything that moved: ammonites, fish, even other reptiles, and sometimes each other. With their flexible, streamlined bodies and ambush tactics, mosasaurs truly ruled the oceans for a time. Nothing seemed beyond their reach. But extinction swept the stage clean. With the dinosaurs and mosasaurs gone, the seas didn't stay empty for long. Sharks surged into the vacant roles, growing larger, developing sharper teeth, and shifting their focus to bigger prey. Giants like Otodus emerged, direct ancestors of the mighty Megalodon. The balance of power kept shifting, one apex predator replacing another. Why did the throne of the ocean keep changing hands? Because in nature, dominance is never permanent. Every ruler faces a new challenger. Every advantage is fleeting, and survival always demands adaptation. At the top of the ocean's food chain, nothing is ever secure. The temperature shifts, the sea levels rise and fall, the very makeup of available prey transforms. A predator perfectly suited for today's world can vanish without warning tomorrow. The armored placoderms, the mighty pliosaurs, the mighty mosasaurs, even the legendary megalodon, all of them, rulers in their time, all of them gone. The ocean's most important law is simple. There are no eternal kings beneath the waves. Only those who adapt the fastest and hunt the most efficiently will survive, and only those who seize an empty niche when it appears. Every new monarch of the sea doesn't rise because it's the strongest, but because the world around it has changed. If we're honest, the story of Megalodon was never the beginning. It was just another chapter in a long saga. Long before it, the ocean was already home to predators that once seemed just as invincible. Now picture the depths, far below where sunlight cannot reach. There are boundaries in the ocean. Cross them, and the light fades away. First, colors dim, then shadows disappear, until at last there is only darkness. Life emerged here long before humans, even before the age of dinosaurs, a world completely without sunlight. In these depths, there are no plants and none of the familiar food chains. Day and night mean nothing. The water is bitterly cold, the pressure is crushing, and whatever food exists drifts down from above, quite literally. Any creature that found itself here millions of years ago had to transform or perish. The first inhabitants of the abyss were pioneers of darkness. Deep-sea ecosystems date back to ancient oceans, where bizarre, soft-bodied creatures lived, early arthropods and primitive fish, many of whom had never known daylight for generations. They navigated their world by sensing vibrations, by detecting chemical cues, by feeling the movement of water. Eyesight faded in importance, replaced by an entirely new set of survival tools. Bioluminescence, light born from within. In a place without sunlight, creatures became their own sources of illumination. Some ancient deep-sea dwellers glowed, luring prey toward them. It looks mesmerizing, but make no mistake, this glow is a weapon. It can confuse victims, hide a predator's outline, or signal to kin. The ocean in darkness isn't truly black. Instead, it sparkles with bursts of living light. Pressure here is relentless, unforgiving. The deeper you go, the heavier the water presses in. Ancient deep-sea forms evolved soft, pliable bodies, sometimes with flexible bones or none at all, and their slow metabolism meant they needed little energy. Speed was pointless. Survival depended on patience. Here, hunting isn't a chase. There are no high-speed pursuits in the darkness. Instead, predators wait, sense the faintest tremor, then strike from close range. Often, the prey never even knows it has been found. By the time contact happens, it's over in an instant. Food is a rare prize. Down here, mistakes are costly. Meals arrive by chance, scarce, unpredictable, and often meager. Many deep-sea creatures are indiscriminate eaters. They'll swallow prey larger than themselves and digest it slowly, over weeks. Hunger is a constant backdrop, a shadow that never leaves. This is the oldest, most stable ecosystem on Earth. Here's a remarkable fact. Deep-sea zones have changed less than any other environment for hundreds of millions of years. While the surface world suffered mass extinctions, disasters, and endless cycles of new species replacing the old, down below, life just continued, slow, silent, and shrouded in darkness. Imagine, for a moment, an ancient creature from these depths. It has no concept of sunlight, no notion of sky. Its entire existence unfolds in perpetual night. Crushing pressure, biting cold, and only the occasional flicker of light pierce the darkness. Then, without warning, a corpse tumbles down from above, massive, lifeless. For the deep sea, this isn't a tragedy. It's a banquet that can last for weeks. Down here, the ocean's depths aren't the world's edge. They are another world entirely, a realm older than most of the creatures we call prehistoric. The most bizarre bodies in the animal kingdom have evolved in these waters. Here, evolution is sculpted by form. Everything comes down to the architecture of your body. How you swim, how you breathe, how you hunt, and how you escape. Over hundreds of millions of years, the ocean has seen more radical transformations in creatures' bodies than anything found on land. In the earliest seas, armor was survival. The creatures that endured were those too tough to bite. Armored fish, shelled mollusks, beings clad in bony plates. The logic was simple. It's safer to be slow and protected than fast and exposed. But armor came at a cost: weight, sluggish movement, poor maneuverability. When predators evolved stronger jaws and sharper teeth, armor was no longer an invincible shield. The next evolutionary leap was streamlining. Suddenly, speed mattered more. Fish became elongated, sleek, their tails engineered for power. Bodies began to resemble living torpedoes. Now the advantage belonged to the swift, the ones who could spot danger or opportunity first, turn on a dime, and strike before the moment passed. This was the dawn of the hydrodynamic arms race. Flexibility replaced heaviness. Some marine reptiles, like the Mosasaurus, took a surprising turn. Their bodies grew long and supple, built not for defense but for agile control. Mosasaurs weren't armored tanks. They were living whips, able to twist and lunge, to ambush from the shadows or coil around their prey. In this arena, control trumped protection. A soft body could be a weapon all its own. The strangest forms abandoned rigidity altogether. Ancient cephalopods were soft, pliable, shape-shifting wonders. They could squeeze through narrow cracks, rocket their bodies forward in a burst, or vanish into the background with uncanny camouflage. Here, softness became a strategy for survival.
Sharks are the blueprint for a nearly perfect predator, a design that has barely changed for hundreds of millions of years. Why? Their skeletons are light and cartilaginous, bodies supple, and teeth renewed for a lifetime. It's a flawless balance: speed, maneuverability, endurance. There's no single winning blueprint in the ocean. Some creatures rely on heavy plating, others on sheer speed, some on flexibility, and others on stealth and disguise. Every form fits its own niche. The deeper and more perilous the ocean became, the more radical the experiments with body design. Some creatures doubled down on armor, others shed it entirely. Some became transparent, nearly invisible. Others lost all shape and became amorphous. Evolution doesn't seek beauty. It seeks any advantage that buys another day of life. Picture this evolutionary journey. First, a lumbering, armored beast hugging the seafloor. Next, a torpedo-shaped fish slicing through the water. Then, a supple marine lizard twisting in pursuit. Finally, a soft-bodied hunter, endlessly adaptable. The ocean seems to have tested every possibility: shield or speed, protection or agility. And, with time, it was not the ones who could endure a blow, but those who could avoid it altogether that increasingly came out on top. Some ancient creatures looked like nature's wild experiments, mistakes if you judge by our modern standards. Strip away the romance, and the prehistoric world becomes a gallery of forms so bizarre, so seemingly illogical, they appear to have been assembled at random. Yet, beneath every oddity, evolution almost always hid a razor-sharp purpose. Take the legendary Apabenia. Imagine a being with 5 eyes perched on its head and a long, flexible trunk curling from its face. Its body was soft, almost like a squishy arthropod, and the mouth was tucked away underneath. On the surface, it's hard not to see this as a misstep of evolution. But that trunk, it was a marvel, a tool for grabbing food, probing the seabed, and manipulating its surroundings. What looks like a freak of nature is, in truth, an early attempt at building a universal tool. Then there's Ankylosaurus, the
the faceless hunter of the Cambrian oceans. Instead of jaws, it brandished massive, grasping appendages. Its mouth was a ring of hard plates, and its body blended the contours of a shrimp with the undulating form of a ray. For years, scientists mistook its parts for the remains of several different animals. In reality, this was one of the planet's very first formidable predators. Or consider Helicoprion, the ancient shark whose jaw unwinds into a spiral saw blade. At first glance, it looks like a developmental glitch, an evolutionary dead end. Yet that spiral of teeth was perfect for slicing through soft-bodied prey and keeping a grip on slippery victims. Evolution doesn't always chart a straight path. Sometimes it spirals wildly, testing the limits of what life can be. Tanystrophe stands out too, a reptile with a neck so long it dwarfed its own body. The proportions border on the absurd, a compact torso trailing a rigid, extended neck. Why this design? Because in the shallows, while the body stayed hidden, the head could dart forward in a lightning strike, turning that strange anatomy into the perfect ambush weapon. Even ancient cephalopods with their long, tapering shells seem ungainly and awkward. Slow, exposed, easy prey. But their shells were shields, offering protection, helping control buoyancy, and letting them hover motionless in open water. A delicate balance between armor and movement. But why do such outlandish shapes arise at all? Evolution doesn't plan or design in advance. It experiments. If a body form works, if it brings an advantage and lets an animal survive and breed, it stays, no matter how eccentric it seems. And here's the crucial point. Many so-called mistakes vanished not because they were failures, but because the world around them changed. The climate shifted, new prey appeared, swifter predators arrived. What was once an edge became a liability. The truth is, we're simply used to the animals around us now. If someone from the Cambrian period could gaze at a whale, a shark, or an octopus, they might ask, are these truly normal creatures? Normal, after all, is just what you're used to seeing.